Welcome back to BabyBumpVlog in a seriously weird morning. It's Jakkals trou met wolfsvrou, which is an Afrikaans expression we use to describe it when it's raining and the sun is shining simultaneously. So it's weird, but I love it. I love change. And that is exactly what prompted me to make this video, because initially, with the huge change that was the pandemic, I took it really well. Actually, I think many people I knew were depressed in the beginning when it was lockdown. And I took lockdown level 5 and level 4, level 3 pretty well. And yes, I jotted down some of the changes that were really intense for me. But I think what's really getting to me, especially in South Africa right now, is the lack of change. The fact that we seem to be in a perpetual lockdown, and I'm not a healthcare professional, but I do understand what politicians are telling us, and some healthcare providers are telling us with regard to us taking it easy, easing into no lockdown. For those of you who don't know, South Africa, we had 5 levels of lockdown. Currently, we're still in level 1. And it feels like we have been in level 1 forever now. Even with my previous video, when I went to hospital, we were already in level 1. How long ago was that? So, I think my first thing on the list that's really getting to me with pregnant in a pandemic is the fact that when I was at the hospital the last time, husbands, partners, moms or dads, your +1 was not allowed with you in the hospital or even with delivery. So I know that many people have told me that in private hospitals that's not the case, which that is great for those moms who have a medical aid and who have the ability to be able to go to a private hospital. But I am at a public healthcare facility, and I remember when I was there, because I was there for a few days, that every time the mommy was ready to leave with the baby, they wouldn't even let the partner up to the labor ward. Mama had to take a bag, baby, paperwork, everything, and just find herself at the front entrance where her partner or the person that picks her up would find her, which is crazy to me. It's crazy because seeing that I go to hospital quite a bit for them to monitor my sugar, etc., I have the luxury of really seeing what is going on a pretty much day-to-day or weekly basis. And why I feel this is super unfair is because the elevators would say no more than 4 people are allowed in this elevator. However, we find ourselves not social distancing and filling an elevator, which is, I don't know, a 2 by 2 meter space. I don't even know if it's 2 by 2 meter space with 8 or 9 people. However, dads are not allowed in the theater or wherever mommy is gonna be laboring with a mask. So that is something that is so unfair to me. The fact that in many parts of public hospitals, there is literally no social distancing. There are signs that say we should social distance, but in all practicality, it's not happening. Yet, in a controlled environment, which is a labor ward, well, that's funny. It's not controlled, but it could be controlled with regard to your visitors. Oh, their daddies are not allowed. What? And it is causing me quite a bit of anxiety because our president spoke and a lot of sectors opened up. All our sectors opened up, economically speaking. but I never heard him discussing this specific point of concern that I have and that many other women have. And I don't know if it's up to the discretion of the hospital what I should do. Do you guys think, comment down below, do you think I should start writing an email to the hospital or just contact someone with regard to this specific feeling that I have? Because I truly have a bit of anxiety when I think of the fact that I'm going to give birth alone. And I'm 36, I don't know if there are going to be complications. I'm high risk. I don't know if I'm going to be going for a cesarean. And yes, some of the older ladies that I've spoken with have told me, oh, what does the man do anyway? You don't need him. That couldn't be further from the truth for me, in my opinion, because I remember that with Victor's birth, Pablo helped me so much. For those of you who watched my birth story with Victor, his help was invaluable. They didn't believe me that I went from 4 centimeters dilation to just about to pop in like a flash. So if it hadn't been for Pablo that literally went to call them, or it hadn't been for them to help me in many other regards, I honestly don't know how things would have played out for Victor or myself. So I feel it's super necessary, not only for Chris to be there, for him to see the first moments of his son's life, but also just for me, for emotional support. That's something that's freaking me out. And that's the thing about change, or in this case, lack of change, which for me is a change, a lack of change. My life's always changing. I'm a dynamic person and my life feels like it's very progressive. So this is really intense for me, just waiting on the government to make a call on this, or to make a decisive how will I say, like to actually put out something on paper for hospitals to use as a reference going forward. But I am trying to really meditate and think of, you know, what I'm going to do. I'm trying to still my mind. I'm trying to get to a point where this is going to be okay. And I'm trying to speak to God and ask Him to help me to be courageous and to speak to God and to ask Him to be with David and myself. And I'm praying and asking God to help me to accept this, and also after everything is done, not to have resentment to this life event that might possibly happen. So yeah, this is something serious that I'm working on within myself, and it might sound ridiculous, I don't know. Also tell me in the comment section below. By the way, subscribe. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. Please join a community and tell me, do you think I'm being ridiculous? Because I honestly don't feel I'm being ridiculous. I am somebody that, no man is an island, but I am somebody that I don't really need my hand to be held every second of the day. I see myself as somebody that feels okay going through life, paving the way through the long grass. But in this regard, I just feel a bit like icky. I feel that I want Chris at the birth of his son, which brings me to something else that lockdown has done that was so weird, is that Chris hasn't seen his son on a scan at all. I know they said that at private healthcare facilities, but also before I went to this public hospital, where I am receiving excellent treatment, by the way, I was at a private gynecologist, and probably at the level of lockdown we were at that point, they also didn't allow him in. So yeah, that's something that I feel a bit sad about, and I'm also just, you know, putting it behind me and training my mind. That's the thing of 2020. Whenever I think of 2020, I'm gonna hear this song, da 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 da, I have the tiger, baby. This is the year that trained my mind. I feel my mind was so trained. In the beginning of lockdown, I started this prayer diary where I said that Daniel prayed, and they call it the Daniel prayer, praying for 21 days for breakthrough. So I was documenting my thoughts, my prayers, dreams, everything, and that was the start of something really beautiful. But as we know, with pregnancy and all things beautiful, pain is something that inevitably is an interchangeable part of it. It's love is sacrifice. So with the same thing with your mind, beauty is pain. And there is not pain in beauty necessarily, but in the process of finding beauty, there is pain. So this year has trained my mind. I'm very thankful to God that I am living through this, but I can't say that it's been easy. This year has not been easy, and adapting has not been easy. And as I've said before, Darwin, it's not the strongest of the species that will survive, but the one that is most adaptable. So it's just the way I'm gonna go. I want to adapt. Let's see, what other things? Mask. Dude, the mask. Yeah, that's another big one that's really still in the forefront of my mind, because we're still wearing masks. Sure, I don't know what to say that we all are not feeling. Actually, on my acting channel, Margaret Burkholz, I did a skit on it in Afrikaans, which is my home language. I did a skit on the mask because it's just so funny. And yes, I do understand why we're social distancing, sanitizing, wearing masks. I absolutely understand and support it. That does not make it easy, as I've said. Being in hospital like a while ago, even sleeping with masks. I'm claustrophobic, so I just could not mentally deal. Like, I went to the bathroom, I would sit on the toilet and just take off my mask and breathe. And the nurse would come knock, like, "Are you okay?" And I'm, "Yes, nurse, I am fine, thank you." So that's something I did in hospital, because I just feel like I can't breathe, which is what probably people will say, yeah, if you have COVID, you really won't be able to breathe. I know. I'm speaking of my experience. And the mask has been hectic. Like, I remember in the beginning, and still, I say that it's not still the case, of my pregnancy, I feel like David's not getting enough oxygen, because I feel like I'm not getting enough oxygen with the mask. So I always had this fear, like, he's not going to grow properly or big enough or develop in the right way. So that has led me to my fourth point, which is I've been going to restaurants, especially now that we're on level 1 and restaurants are open. But even when we were on level 5 and you could go to the grocery store, the supermarket, I didn't go. Chris went every single time, because I just felt that, by the way, I'm having the best beverage that my cousins gave me at my baby shower. It's like a rooibos tea cappuccino. It's amazing. It's so weird. I would never have thought to put tea, the idea of tea and a cappuccino in one thought, but it's just really good. Anyway, so Chris went every single time just because I felt so claustrophobic. I couldn't deal with the fact that I had to wear a mask and I'm pregnant, and I felt like I'm depriving my baby of oxygen and depriving my brain of oxygen. So most of this lockdown, which has been since, correct me if I'm wrong, March the 27th, we've been in lockdown this year, which, as I say, has been great for growth, personal development, me starting a vlog, me finding an acting agent. It's been incredible, but I've had no social interaction. And as I say, in the beginning of lockdown, that was fine. I loved it. My creativity thrived. But I feel like the more it's going on, my lack of social interaction is kind of getting to me. Not being able to see friends. Still, many people don't even want to come to, for instance, parties that you have, baby shower. I'm not saying mine, I'm just saying. So that really affects a lot of our social interaction, which might have an effect on your mood. Moms, tell me, how many of you have been affected by the lockdown this year and not having a baby shower or having a virtual baby shower? And then that also brings me to the point of financial stress, especially in the beginning of lockdown, but actually this entire lockdown, because we're never sure of when the president's going to speak. It's even at this point now in South Africa that when we hear that President Ramaphosa wants to speak, we're like, everybody that drinks goes to the liquor store and just buys liquor, buys cigarettes, because we're just used to kind of being in lockdown now. And it has an effect on Chris's business. Chris works for himself, and so apart from the 6 million people now that have officially lost their jobs, that's not even including all the undocumented people that come from other countries that work here for less than minimum wage. I'm just speaking of documented people that we know of, 6 million. Apart from those people losing their jobs, in my actual reality with Chris, firstly, I'm not working. Thank God I'm studying. As you can see that mess on the table, I'm studying to be a teacher. I'm doing a TEFL course to teach English as a foreign language online. So that's something that's super exciting. But this lockdown has really affected our finances and Chris's business because there's no certainty with regard to anything. So nobody wants to invest money in buying huge earth movers or whatever, you know. That's what Chris's business is about, is earth moving, trucks, etc. And nobody's sure what's happening. Nobody in the world is even sure what's happening. So people are not being given contracts at mines, or a lot of the construction sites have halted production, etc. So that's really been tough, is just the financial stress of not only being financially strained, but secondly being financially strained with Chris having 2 children from his previous relationship and myself having Victor, but now also bringing little David into the equation. And I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't want to be too verbose. I think all of us have dealt with immense financial stress during this time, and that has been one of the biggest negatives of this lockdown, especially in level 5 when we were cramped up together, and level 4 cramped up together, nowhere to go, and just this immense financial stress and just nobody knowing what the next step was going to be. That was hell. Sitting in the house with Chris, just worrying about money. God bless him, I love him with all my heart. But that was hell, and I don't want that period of time back, or that feeling that we had back. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, my brain blocked it out. This is what we call coping mechanism. Your brain blocks out stuff that it doesn't want to remember, which brings me to something I did remember, my segue to uncertainty. Uncertainty, I would say, is the worst thing of this lockdown, because just all the uncertainty of, will there be a vaccine? How long does it take for a vaccine to be tested? When there is a vaccine, blah, blah, blah. I can't even fill in all the blanks currently because I see this video is just running and I don't want to make it too long. But the uncertainty of the lockdown has been intense. As I say, I do love change. I love being dynamic and progressive. But this kind of uncertainty was much different because it didn't only affect me, it affected everybody in the world. And that kind of uncertainty felt like it's the end of the world as we know it. And that was a different kind of uncertainty that I've ever felt before, and I'm sure all of us, we've never ever dealt with this pandemic on a global scale. So I literally felt like the woman during the Spanish flu. And yes, people could say, well, things were different, things were worse during that time because they didn't have X, Y, and Z, and they had X, Y, and Z going on, wars, etc. But yeah, let's quickly recap. During the 1960s, I think, the population was less than half of what it's now. So we had such a population boom during the past 50 years, 55 years, where it doubled. Resources haven't necessarily doubled, or the ability and willingness of the system to really provide for everybody. So there are a lot more people that are suffering. There are a lot more people looking for jobs with just a finite amount of jobs. So yes, things were different, and people will always say stuff like, in the olden days things were better or things were worse. But the olden days were the olden days, and they had their own sets of problems and good times. The same with every single age. Every single age has their own good times and bad times, and for us, this is our time. I didn't live 100 years back, so there's no real way that I could compare the two that would be genuine. And so for me, this is, you know, the thing where they say pain is relative, everybody's pain is their pain. Same thing. For me, I felt like I was living in an apocalyptic movie, or, you know, oh, I lived 100 years back. But that's just, you know, the visual way in which my mind represented what was really happening in my reality and what I was experiencing and feeling. And I felt really uncertain about anything and everything. And I still do, because we really don't know what is going on or what is happening, and there is no real resolution to the COVID thing. We're still hanging in this regard. Let's see. Yeah, in the beginning of lockdown, you couldn't see family, you couldn't even walk your dog here in South Africa. So even if you were wearing a mask, you were not allowed out of your house, or like us, we live in a complex. out of your complex to, for instance, have a barbecue, cry outside, or walk your dog, or any of that. So that I know had a huge effect on many people's mental health. And mental health is something so serious, especially I think when you are pregnant and dealing with hormones, dealing with the innate uncertainty of a pregnancy, but then with all the other variables in this pandemic, that had a huge effect on everybody that I personally know. It's just the fact that we didn't have our support systems with us. And yes, there are tools that we have to our disposal, like Zoom and Skype, but it's just not the same as touching somebody, giving someone a hug, looking someone directly in the eye, seeing their micro expressions when you talk. This is what makes us human, is the fact that we are able to relate to one another in real life. I know this is YouTube, but I'm very thankful to YouTube because I love vlogging. I love chatting to you all. And for myself, I have people that I watch religiously on YouTube, and I love watching them. But and yes, they're relatable and everything, which is why I love them, but they're not my family or friends, and I haven't seen them in real life, so I wouldn't know what their actual vibe is, because that is something you only feel in real life. All right, so another thing, we couldn't visit the kids. That was the worst part of the entire lockdown, and thank God that was just for a month for me, with Victor being at my parents' house. But for Chris it was much longer, because his children live in a different province with their mom, and they hadn't opened the provinces at all during that time. So Chris hadn't seen his children for months. That had such a big effect on him. It broke him. And it had such a negative effect on our relationship, because obviously we're parents. We want our children with us, around us, we want to be with them. And it was just something that was very difficult to deal with, because none of us could do anything to rectify the situation or change it. No matter what we did, we couldn't go and see our children. And of the entire lockdown experience, that was by far the worst experience, because children don't understand. They don't understand that we are in a lockdown and what is really going on. Just thinking of that is like, children are the crown of creation. I always say that, like, I love children because, as this is my faith, which is why I share it, because it's what I believe. But as Jesus says, the more you become like a child, the more likely you'll be entering the kingdom of heaven. So for me, everything about children is cool. I love them. I love children. So just thinking about how bad the lockdown was for them is really something that I hate thinking about. The fact that they didn't see their friends, etc., their parents in some cases, freaks me out. Moving on. So yeah, there are lots of things. There are a lot of things, and I would like for you to not only subscribe to this channel, but also to go follow us on social media. I'll put the Instagram and Facebook links in the description down below. Please go follow me, like me, go follow BabyBumpVlog and like BabyBumpVlog, and please have this discussion with me. What was the most hectic thing that came out of lockdown for you? And remember, South Africa is still in lockdown. I don't know, other countries I'm seeing on the news now are going back into hard lockdown. So wherever you're from, please feel free to comment. I want to know what your experiences are in your country. What's the worst thing that came from lockdown and what's the best thing? And speaking about that, during this lockdown, I actually stopped being a smoker. As you guys know, it was outlawed for us to smoke cigarettes. You couldn't buy cigarettes anywhere, and if the police, for instance, saw you in the car smoking and they'd stop you and find cigarettes in your car without a slip showing that you bought it pre-lockdown, which was before March the 27th, they locked you up. So there are over 300,000 people that were arrested during this lockdown for lockdown infringements. Some of them being smoking cigarettes. So that really incentivized me to stop smoking, and that was even before I found out I was pregnant. That was just such an incentive, buying it on the black market and being caught, really. Also, they asked like 7 times the price on the black market. So all that pushed me to leave smoking behind, au revoir, and then I found out I was pregnant. So I think one of the best things of the lockdown is the fact that I'm not a smoker anymore. And that doesn't mean I don't crave cigarettes. Even though I'm pregnant, I think about cigarettes often because Chris is a smoker. So I do think about it, but that would be one of the best and most positive things of the lockdown. Also, I have an awesome acting agent now. Great thing that happened in the lockdown. So yes, there have certainly been some really positive things that have come from lockdown. I have grown closer to myself and to my understanding of God during the lockdown. Also, incredible experience. But as I've said, the duality of this lockdown has not been lost on me. We are here. 2020 is almost done. My baby bump is at 34 weeks this week. Dup, 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 dup. Baby bump. Chris keeps telling me that I should pack my bag, that I should pack my hospital bag. So I think that's the next vlog I'm gonna do, is getting ready, packing my hospital bag. Thank you for joining me on BabyBumpVlog. You guys are awesome. This has been great. This is something I started during lockdown, is my vlog. And I just love vlogging. I love talking to you guys. As you can notice, I love talking. And thank you for being there. Love, growth, pandemic, and baby.